All right, this is John Fox again with another episode of Design, Build, Ascend Studios. And I've got a special guest with me, Christopher Quigley, who is the star of a phenomenal program. I know he's don't like that. Agency Custom. And anyway, we're gonna dig into a little bit about him, and welcome to the show.
Oh, thank you very much, John. I'm really happy to be here and really honored to be part of this.
I know he feels like we just spoke because we just did and we didn't record it. So we're going to do it again.
We can do it again.
Yeah. So, so tell us a little bit about Agency Custom, a little bit about your history. Where did you come from and how did you get to where you are today?
So where I come from is a little farming community in rural Manitoba, Canada, called Portage La Prairie. Grew up on a horse farm. Moved to Vancouver, ended up into interior design, worked for an agency for the better part of a decade, but really kind of fell into the custom side really early on in my career, and then was offered a position to move to New York. And after that position was over, started Agency Custom based on this real fascination and this real innate understanding of custom building and custom fabrication, and wanting to have basically a house of fabricators that were all very different, that all had different core competencies and were experts in their field. So the way that we kind of look at this and how this all came about is that we weren't wanting to be one manufacturer that could do it all. We wanted to be 17 that all had a very different attitudes and different ways to approach projects, but really ended up still making something really fantastic for the client. So my background, the first piece I ever did was for Swarovski, and it was these crystal fireplaces. And that's really what kind of got the bug going. But if you go way back, it was really all about custom cars, understanding that, cars and custom cars aren't built by one person. They're built by teams that are all good at what they do. So from the upholsterer to the suspension guy, to the engine guy, to, it's all these groups of people that come together to help create something really beautiful. And so that's kind of the ethos that I took to starting Agency Custom, was groups come together to help the client create something really beautiful.
Agency Custom is such a unique approach to the market. And, there's a lot of custom manufacturers out there that seem to sort of solve problems, based in their purview. But one of the things I was noticing is that, you're almost like an agency within an agency. I'm confused on how that operates. When let's say one of the agencies calls you, or an architect calls you, and they say, hey, we want to do this chandelier or this piece. How do you navigate, 17 different manufacturers to choose which one gets the work? How does that work?
So it's really going to be based on technology, materiality, pedigree of the manufacturer to match with the client, because not every manufacturer is going to be a good match. So we kind of look at this as trying to match up talent with the right groups and with the right architects, the right interior designers, so that what they get is what they envision. And so we are an agency within an agency. We are 17 lines under the umbrella of Agency Custom, but we are also in other agencies throughout North America, from PLP in California to CDM2 Lightworks in Vancouver, British Columbia, to Chicago Lightworks or Oblaney Rinker here in New York. We are a partner agent within that agency, but we are the custom fabrication partner agent. We are the experts in our field. We come at this from a real understanding and a real knowledge base of how stuff works, how things are put together, how the materials work together. But that's kind of how we approach this, was that we wanted to be the experts in the field, but also be within an agency where they can go, oh yeah, we actually know who can do that. So we kind of approached it from that position of, these are 17 of the best that you're going to find. And each one of them has a different core competency. Each one of them has a different expertise. And there might be the possibility that they actually have to collaborate to create what you need. So we look at it from the same way as you would a custom car, that we're going to create something pretty, but there might be a whole bunch of collaboration that goes on that you're going to be a part of. So that's kind of our biggest, I think our biggest draw is that we don't say that we're one company. We are a multitude.
You almost act as a custom manufacturer in that sense, in my mind, because when we, as a custom manufacturer, they've got great vendors over here that do metal bending. They know who to call when they need their glass blowing. They know who to call when they need polishing and all these things. So your skill set as a manufacturer, your experience there really adds to the value to this whole process. You really bring a good value to not only your manufacturers that you work with, but also to your customers. Can you give me an example of what you did where you brought everybody, more than one manufacturer, into a project?
Well, basically every project has some level of collaboration from the engineering to the design to the actual fabrication. We also have to include another portion of this, which is going to be, because of the complexity of projects and the use of LED, that the programming, commissioning, and integration is also something that has to be incorporated into that custom build, and even a maintenance program at the end of it, because as this piece is there, it's going to have to be maintained, it's going to have to be repaired. So who's going to do that? So we look at this from that kind of position from a holistic view of there's more to it than just once we install it. We don't walk away and go, okay, hey, thanks for the check. We want to be there to say, okay, we're going to maintain this. There's a maintenance program that we're going to incorporate. But literally every piece that we've built from, we did a massive piece for Herzog de Meuron in DC at the Conrad Hotel, where we had to incorporate, here's what we're manufacturing, but here's the programming commissioning side and the installation side, or here's what we need to do to basically partner with another manufacturer to be able to use their lighting engine. So we kind of, like, every project requires that level of collaboration. And we want the client to know that, and we want the client to be a part of it. So I feel that's the biggest difference with us, is that we have the client so involved in every project that we're allowing them to help create their own narratives to their pieces so that they have their own story to tell. Because we just don't build something. We build something that's going to be uniquely theirs. And so that's kind of I think that's really our best approach, is that, we're transparent. We involve the client to an unbelievable degree, and we allow them to have, access to their own narrative rather than one being forced on them.
Yeah, that's a great asset to what you do. I'm fascinated with the approach. I feel like in the world of agencies, in the world of representation, the world of manufacturing, you've really carved out a great example of the book called Blue Ocean Strategy. If you ever read it, have you read it?
No, I haven't.
If you haven't, you're already doing it, so you don't even need the book. But the idea is that there's a lot of opportunities out there. You just have to look between the trees. People are, you're trying to battle. If you're trying to learn how to do tree skiing, for example, if you're going down the mountain, the way you learn how to tree ski is you don't look at any of the trees. That's number one. And by doing that, you're able to find the path forward. And you seem to really found this open area to solve problems and bring a lot of manufacturers probably to access to people that didn't actually have access to before. And you address the part of, like, I don't know, you have this beauty of representation that I've seen in Hollywood. And I feel like you're like the first talent agent of architecture. I mean, how else would I describe that? I mean,
I think that's actually
no one else that does what you do.
I think that is actually apropos, because when you break it down, when you actually find out who these manufacturers are and who owns them and who is the driving force behind them, these are talented people. They are architects, they are engineers,
Absolutely.
they are industrial designers, they are interior designers, they are anything that you can possibly think of. That these are creative people that have an incredible resume on their own. They have incredible talent on their own, and they just so happen to be just as fascinated with custom building as I am. So when we look at a fabricator, we want to find out, we want to be aligned with them because we want that level of talent. And I guess that's the best. I've been called a lot of things, and that's probably one of the nicest to say that I'm a talent agent. It is, but these people are talented, and that's what we bring to this. And just to, back up a little, we did all of this because that was stuff that I was missing when I was an agent or when I was an interior designer.
Okay.
Was that having that type of access and having that ability to go, oh, who does this portion, and who's going to do the install, and oh wait, who's going to do the programming on this? It becomes really daunting. And so we wanted to streamline that process for our clients to make things and the clients, when I talk clients, I'm talking architects, interior designers, developers, whoever. I mean, we work with literally everybody. There's not one group that we work more with than the other, but we wanted to streamline the process to go, we're turnkey. And they don't, some people are like, oh, well, what part do you leave out? It's like, no, we do everything. Like we
install
will
everything,
install the maintenance, basically whatever you need done for this thing for the lifetime that it's going to be in its space. And that's the point I want to say about this, is that I always kind of consider custom, and there's like a real history about custom. And the reason people always went custom is because it was meant to last and it had durability, whether or not it was like a rubble floor for a church with rubble and mortar, or, a really expensive pair of cowboy boots. People bought things custom because they were built and they were meant to last. And so we come at it from that approach. And just because they're meant to last doesn't mean that it's going to be expensive, but it means that it's going to be built in a way that satisfies my needs to be able to go, I want to attach our company's name to it. And same with our fabricators to say, yeah, we built something that's going to be there for the next, 40, 50, 60 years, or however long it needs to be there. So we look at it from a very different position of, like I said before, it's like the holistic view from the very birth of the thing all the way through to how are we going to raise it once it's actually out on its own.
So as an agent, I would say, I mean, you're calling yourself agent, but is there a money connection between, do you filter the projects, or how you operate as a company as far as bringing connecting those customers to your fabricators? Are you a go-between? How does that work?
So yeah, we basically facilitate the introduction. There's a lot of stuff that I do at the beginning that allows me to vet a project to find out exactly who I'm going to be aligning that project with, because I'm not just going to throw it at 17 of the different fabricators that we have, because it's not all within their expertise. So when I find out about who the end user is, who the architect is, where the project is, all of those things are going to matter, because I want to be able to match up the pedigree of the fabricator with the pedigree of the client. And so, and sometimes there's going to be a bit of a cost difference, but that really kind of helps because it gives the client some level of comfort to go, okay, they actually know what I like. They actually understand the level that I need this done at. And it's not something that we just throw at them, because it's like, there's a reason that we look at the fabricators that we do and try to match them up with the right project and with the right client and the right end user. It's really an important factor in the way that we operate. And we allow the client to have direct access to the fabricator. So I'm not, I am the middleman, but I'm certainly not the one that's going to be standing in the way of the client having direct access with that architect or with that fabricator, with that engineer, whoever. Right. There needs to be that direct contact, because there's things that I just don't want to be in the way of.
And and you mentioned earlier that you prior to the recording was that you're open book. I mean, everyone knows about pricing, and a lot, even to the demise of some of the people involved may not want you to do that. I think that's admirable and the right approach. I mean, I think that's key.
Well, so we have to, and that's one of the things that we pride ourselves on is our transparency. Like, I will have, if somebody asks me, what what the commission rate is going to be, I will tell them. It's like, well, this is what this commission is going to be. Or I don't want there to be any sense of impropriety or anything being held back, because that stuff really creates division. And I also want to be able to track down, to be perfectly honest, if a project goes over budget, I'm like, well, how much was it? And, if say,
Why? Right.
Why, who did that? And we can track it back pretty easily. So we want to be able to have some level of control over that, because there's a lot of work that has to go in just to get to a quote. And if somebody comes in like a distributor and steps on it a little too much, that ruins our process, and it ruins it for everybody.
Yeah.
So we do that. We reveal the price to everybody, from the lighting designer to the client to the GC, much to the chagrin of the GC. But we lay it out to everybody. Just be like, this is how much it is.
Yeah. So you and I met on the first time we ever talked was actually at that podcast to talk about 3D printing through the IES in New York, and it was a great podcast. It's probably, I hope you posted it somewhere too. I have it somewhere linked somewhere. It's long, so it's hard to follow the whole thing. But one of the things that I noticed was that you didn't really talk about lighting. We all were talking about lighting from a perspective, but you actually talked about this metal bridge that was being fabricated, and so Agency Custom really isn't a lighting company or even a lighting agency. You're an art company. You're an art representation group. So you have all these fascinating people that you can work with, and lighting just happens to be part of it. I mean, that sounds about right.
A big part of it. It's a big part of it, but it's not the driving force behind everything that we do. It is a major component, but we look at it as the add-on. It's kind of like I always look at lighting as kind of like the top hat on Fred Astaire. It is the way to finish off the look. So the lighting that we incorporated into our pieces basically turns it into the full Fred Astaire aesthetic. You now have the top hat on Fred Astaire. So that's kind of the way that I've always kind of approached lighting, even when I was in my lighting agent days in Vancouver, is that lighting to me has always been the finishing touch in any space. So when we create something and we create a custom piece, first off, we want it to be aesthetically beautiful. We want it to be functional. We want it to be durable. But once we add in the lighting component, that's where the real magic happens for us. And that's really where it's kind of like, we want to keep that, I don't know, like there's people I know that when they go to a restaurant and they get their favorite meal, they always want to save one piece for last. The lighting for us is the one that we want to save for last because it's the most delicious for us.
There you go. There you go.
But it is something that we do consider, but it's not the first thing that we consider. We think of everything else.
So since our last chance on screen together, we've gone through a horrible 2 years in the industry. Do you see any changes going forward? I mean, as far as maybe more 3D printing, do you see people approaching that more from your customer base? Are they asking for that? What do you see going forward?
To kind of reiterate what we had before when we were speaking before, the last 2 years was a nightmare for the custom world, and especially for the really high end and the high value projects. Those ultimately disappeared overnight for the better part of 2 years, literally. But there's a lot of progress happening, and the best analogy that I like to use with this is that the custom world is starting to move forward, but it's a steam engine. And the wheels are on the track, but they're just starting to move forward now, which is a really nice feeling to see the train leave the station. It's the projects are big, the projects are coming back. The people there's a lot more creativity, but where we're seeing a real shift is a lot more outdoor, a lot more exterior projects, which I think is really
interesting,
fascinating, where things are being incorporated into facades. It's a much different approach that I'm seeing, and it was a very quick shift. I think
there's areas that are gone forever. I mean, I think corporate interiors is literally going to be a page in the history books. I just feel like
I agree.
When Twitter got rid of saying you never need to come back, you can work from home. there is an entire overbuilt world that we are living in. And I think going exterior and people can go outside and see things. And I think there's a big thirst for that. So I think that seems apropos as well. I think that's,
Yeah.
that's great.
So we're seeing a lot more, we're seeing a lot of calls for a lot of outdoor pieces, public art pieces,
Yeah.
incorporating things into facades to take facades from a passive facade to something that's more of an interactive piece. I'm just seeing that the level of creativity that I believe that might have been stifled for a couple of years, and seeing the amount of technologies that are out there. And I mean, we have some companies that have some really radical approaches to some technology, and the fact that people are starting to think about, okay, how do we incorporate this in to this project? And it's been a really nice thing to see. It's been really exciting to watch the creativity happen again, and in such a volume. It's been really phenomenal. I've really enjoyed seeing things kind of come back online and as quickly as it has.
Well, we're kind of reaching our limit of the time here, and I know you're a busy guy, so we're going to wrap this up pretty quick. I just wanted you to know that I'm a big fan, and I love watching these projects come through your agency, and it's really cool to see someone approach the blue ocean in the way that I like to do. So finding new ways to tackle the market and provide service. Right, you're really a service industry, and that's one thing you learn is that you provide a service. The thing that you do really isn't as important as the service you provide, and I think you do a really good job of that. So thanks again for carving out some of your time, and hope it's not too cold up there. And if you want to come visit and do it in the studio next time you're in California, don't hesitate. Just call me.
Oh no, absolutely. I think there's a lot of other stuff that you and I can talk about that we have some common interest in that would be interesting.
If you build cars and I build cars, we can certainly do that. So yeah, that's definitely a good tie.
Yeah, that'll be a really good tie-in.
All right. Well, thanks for your time again. And,
my pleasure.
Yeah, absolutely. Have a great day.
Thank you very much, John.